Hello, Awesome Soul here, and we have some live stream recap to catch up on, as well as a news post on the website detailing Megabots. So how I figured I would lay this out, as I am slightly late to the party when it comes to reviewing this live stream that they did. And after they did the live stream, they then posted the news, I think a few days later, or one day later. So some of the stuff in the live stream is also said on the news post. So what I will be doing is detailing all of the non-Megabot related things brought up in the live stream, and then do all the Megabot related stuff once I go on to the article. So, first off, in the live stream at the 41 minute and 15 second point, they get a question as to why exactly the Rails and Plasma received a buff. And for Plasma, it is exactly what I expected. The reason they got the splash radius buff was because the smaller ones, basically anything smaller than Mega Plasma, had a hard time hitting any hovering units. And with the popularity that hovers got a little while back, once they had a little small rework done to them, they became incredibly popular. So then Plasma was inadvertently nerfed just due to the fact that there were so many hovers around, and it was very difficult to actually hit them. And then the rail change. This was because, and I quote, "Rails had a very low DPS, aka damage per second." They didn't really go into any more detail on that, but one thing that I can assume from this is, in the past, the maps were a lot more open, and therefore it was a lot easier for Rails to actually shoot from across the map, acting like a sniper. But when the maps were all redesigned, they became a lot more compact, and they had a lot more cover everywhere. So it became very difficult for the Rails to actually shoot anything. The only map that they kind of still are fairly good at least in their original role, is Vanguard's End. And that's only because that map was the one that was not reworked into the new style, just because at the time it was the most recent map. I've seen a few complaints though that are saying Rails are too powerful, and honestly I would have to disagree. Mainly because they have the highest nominal count out of any weapon in the game. You require 5 Rails to get the full fire rate. And, as you know if you've played Rails, if you lose a single gun and you have less of a fire rate, or perhaps your gun is blocked, so the whole smart weapon system then lowers your fire rate, anything like that really throws off your aim. Because when you're firing your Rails, you get into a rhythm. You can go, now I can fire, and now I can fire, and now I can fire. But, for example, if you're like, okay, I can fire now, and then nothing comes out, but your reticle still blooms out, so you're inaccurate for your next shot. That is a bit of a problem, but that's honestly pretty fair. That's kind of the drawback of Rail. You're not really meant to be getting up close, and therefore losing your Rails. You're meant to stay in the back lines or the mid lines and sort of fight there. I've also seen people comparing them to Ions now, because you can deal heavy damage up close. And again, you can't really do that. Ions obviously are a spread weapon, so it is a lot easier to shoot something if you've got like a cone of projectiles coming out of you. But if you have a single pinpoint accurate weapon up close, it's pretty difficult at times to actually shoot anything. But yeah, that's my take on Rails, and I guess Plasma as well. Let me know what you think specifically of Rails. Are they in a good spot? Still too weak? Are they too powerful? Are they just right? Let me know. At the 1 hour and 6 minute mark, they reconfirm that they are still working on a patch for the pit mode. As you know, the pit mode has a few problems when it comes to spawn points. Everybody tends to cluster around one side. Basically, it's a giant spawn nest, and turns into a bit of a scrum and leads to a huge amount of problems, especially if they have high burst damage and you don't, and you're just gonna get spawn camped basically if they rain down plasma from above. And the 1 hour and 14 minute mark, they got a question about name changes, and they say that they do want to offer it, but from the way they've worded it, doesn't sound like we'll be getting it anytime soon. Doesn't seem to be that big of a priority, but it could be a potential monetization route, so maybe if that's the case we might see it a little bit earlier. Anyway, that is all of the non-Megabot related things, but now on to the news article. And then interspersed throughout this, I will bring up points talked about on the live stream. The very first thing to notice on this thing is the article's release date. This, of course, is an in-universe article, and the date listed on here is the 29th of June, 2152. And this is the way, for those who don't know, that FreeJam confirms the release date of the updates. But we pretty much knew that already. This is just a double confirmation. So that again is June the 29th, which is coming up very soon. A lot of the article here is kind of just in-universe flavor text, basically. But it mainly leads up to the last paragraph here, confirming that Megabots are going to be 10,000 CPU. Yes, that is higher than what originally it was, which, off the top of my head, I think it was 7,555 CPU. I would have to double check that. It's been a long time, but I think that sounds right. So yeah, that is a substantial boost to what it originally was. Artbot makers will also be very happy to use this newfound CPU. But something interesting that I kind of thought of is this is exactly 5 times the CPU of a regular bot, and there are 5 players per team. So could this possibly mean that one team has a Megabot but can't bring in any more players? Or for lag reasons, is there going to be a CPU per player slot type thing? So if somebody brings in a 4,000 CPU Megabot, then that would take up 2 player slots. Or perhaps I'm just looking too far into this, and it was just a nice round number that they came to. Now, speaking of other new things that were not exactly the same with the old Megabots, the CPU is different, and we do not require a Mega Module to make our Megabots. Previously, you had to plop down a Mega Module, and then you could start building with the increased CPU. The way it's going to work now is as soon as you place down the cube that will bring you over 2,000 CPU, it is then classified as a Megabot. So, if your bot is 2001 CPU, it will be classified as a Megabot. Somebody who wants to troll their friends in custom games can be saying, oh yeah, no, totally, I'm gonna bring my brand spanking new Megabot into the battle. And you get there, and you see on the tag, 2001 CPU. Or, you know, have a Megabot only battle. But everyone is 2100 CPU. Fairly derpy, but I don't know, certainly something that you can do. I think you get the point. And they talked about that point, by the way, at the 18-minute mark and 50 seconds. The other thing they also talked about a little earlier at the 18-minute mark was the fact that Megabots will be uploadable to the CRF if everything goes as planned. At the time of the live stream, they said they were still working on it, which was 2 days ago from the time this video is going up, I think. Or was it 3 days ago? Point is, they still have a lot of time, and when that was said, they still had even more time. So, fingers crossed, we will actually see Megabots on the shop. And the final thing that was mentioned on the live stream was at the 20-minute and 20-second mark, where they say the live stream, which is on the 30th, will be Megabot focused. So if you would like to participate in that, you will obviously need a Megabot of some kind. I think they also talked about buying Megabots off the store possibly. So if you have a cool one, upload it to there and maybe they will check it out. With all that out of the way, we can now go back to the article and finish this up. So there is a little tag at the bottom, which is the insider tag. And they've kind of done this as a running thing before. And here it says, 1,000 Hornet lasers on 1 Megabot. Why? Well, why not? But yes, this is actually a really good thing, and it's something I kind of assumed was going to be the case. Or at least I sort of hoped it was going to be the case. Because, as most of you would know, the old Megabots could only use the Mega parts, which right now are more or less the legendary classification for all the parts. Obviously, minus all of the things that were released after Megabots were removed. So things like the Mega Mech Legs, the Mega Wheels, Mega Hovers, Mega Lasers, and Mega Plasma. And the Mega Electroplates as well. Those were the only things that you could mount on a Megabot. And it was a little boring and it was fairly stale. So now we can load in whatever the hell we want inside of our Megabots. But as I've said numerous times in past videos, these Megabots are only available in custom games. So it is basically up to you and your friends to balance however you want. If you want to play a more classic version, you can say, okay, you can only mount legendary parts on your Megabot. Or you can go all out and mount those 1000 laser hornets on a Megabot. Hopefully that won't lead to any lag, but chances are they have tested it and it should be okay. I would really hope so, anyway. And the last and final thing that is fairly interesting in the fact that it actually made it onto this news post is the breaking news section, which is also at the very bottom in its own little tag or box or whatever you want to call it. So it reads, sources within Professor Simon's inner circle have hinted at the development of new chassis cube technology. Cohesive nanomolecular density tech increases the molecular bonds between chassis cubes, improving the battlefield durability. This obviously is referring to what we talked about last time, and that was the chassis normalization, as Mark is calling it, where every cube shape will now have the same armor and same weight. But they will also be introducing the TX armor, which was something that existed back when Megabots were a thing. Back in those days, this was a 3 CPU cube, as opposed to a 1 CPU cube that had more armor, but was also lighter. But again though, even in this little breaking news section thing they have here, no word on, well, one, they didn't even bring up TX cubes, nor did they bring up a possible light cube that people have been speculating on as well. So they would have the regular armor, the TX armor, which is your 3 CPU choice, and then your light armor, because there still has to be a way to lighten your bot, specifically one that isn't 3 CPU. Now, going off of past examples, everything in this breaking news box is not guaranteed for the next update. These are more things that they have planned for the future. So we probably won't see it in the next update, or we will see it 1 update from now, or maybe 2 updates from now. I highly doubt it's going to be any longer because they are going into full release fairly soon. But with all of that out of the way, we can now go ahead and wrap up the video. Of course, comment down below anything you have on your mind, specifically pertaining to things I've discussed in the video. And with that, I of course have been the Awesome Soul. I thank you so very much for watching. I will see you next time. Take care.